Well, howdy, physics sleuths and inquisitive souls, and welcome again to another lecture of dynamic gravity. I would just like to first and foremost start off saying, it's not me, it's him. All of this that I have accomplished is only from his guidance and his will of his ways. I am nothing without him. Nothing at all. And everything that I've given you in this channel is via proxy of him. And on this glorious day of Jesus' day, to celebrate the day that he was born and given to us into this world to teach us right from wrong so that we may please our Creator and be rewarded with his love and rewards. I just want to say, all glory to God, and fuck everyone on the planet who disagrees. Now, shall we begin with antimatter? I promised you that I would do this, and here I am. And this was a doozy. Oh, this was a doozy. I had to go through so many rabbit holes, my children, before I found the right one. At first, I thought that anti-gravity, wrongly so, was simply the same creation method as like say an electron for a positron. The only difference is the electron is created and is part of the negative part of the atom. And so I'm like, well, then maybe the positron is the electron creating an electron and the positive nucleus of the atom somehow when things go awry. And I went with that for a while, and the simulations worked for a bit until they didn't. And I tried to explain everything else not the positron, and it failed miserably because it was wrong. And so I had to go back and do it all over again. And I did it. I succeeded. Thanks to him. And I'm going to share everything with you today. This is probably going to be my longest episode ever. It's probably going to be like 2 or 3 hours, man. It's going to take so fucking long. I know it's going to suck. But I promise you, if you watch every second of this lecture, you will understand antimatter in a way that is complete, perfect, and comprehensive with all observations. You will know exactly what the fuck it is, and every other person on the planet will be inferior to you for simply that they do not have access to that knowledge. And once again, I have been able to make this antimatter theory completely as a tangent and dependent upon dynamic gravity. My theory of gravity that I first came up with like 20 years ago. The only theory of gravity where the math perfectly calculates gravity, dark matter, and dark energy all with the same equation, and it tells you what the hell everything is, what's going on, how everything works, how everything fits together. It all fits, it all works, and yet you don't know about it. Why is that? Why is that? I'm going to leave a link to all of my papers in the bio. I'm going to have to write a new paper now for all this new information that I've gleaned in the last few months, thanks to God. But, yeah, be what it be. So, shall we begin? Oh, yes. Now, as with always, we are going to start at Wikipedia. One of my favorite resources because it's so easy and convenient. I love the whole encyclopedia thing. It's great, and I get it. People are crying their butt hurt. Well, they're not an official source because they won't be accepted by colleges. Yeah, because it makes making a paper too fucking easy, bro. Calm your tits. I was in college for 12 years, okay? They didn't not allow Wikipedia, not because it isn't any wrong or any less accurate than any other source you're going to find in a library. It's simply because it makes writing papers too easy. Ta-da. So, see what our finger is on the pulse of antimatter with modern physics, see what they got. In modern physics, antimatter is defined as composed antiparticles and partners corresponding to particles of ordinary matter. It can be thought of as matter at reverse charge polarity and time, known as CP reversal. Antimatter occurs in natural processes like, dude, I'm not gonna lie, bro. They actually fucking hit this spot on the nose. They couldn't be any more right if they tried. The funny thing is, they have no clue what they're talking about. They don't know. They have no clue what antimatter is or how it's made. But somehow, they have a spot on fucking definition for it. Welcome to modern physics, where you couldn't be any more wrong even when you're right. But don't worry, children. I'm going to teach you everything. No macroscopic amount of antimatter every two due to cost and blah 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 blah. In theory, a particle of antiparticle, for example, a proton and an antiproton, have the same mass but opposite electric charges. Now, just to let you know, now, this is a theory that I entertained for a while until I ran simulations and none of the simulations worked. There's one of my readers that believes that like antimatter is kind of the negative side would be the electron and the positive side of it would be the quark. Those two energies, they're just opposite polarity because that's kind of what mainstream science says. So it just kind of makes sense that, well, a quark is kind of like an antiparticle to an electron in some way, but it's clearly not because for two reasons. First of all, as I've explained in previous lectures, the actual energy that's being created and radiated through the the radar field of a quark, is not the same as an electron. An electron is an electric charge confined by a magnetic field. That's what an electron is. It's a vortex, and we have to explain this to understand what the hell is going on, how we're going to make it. So I'm going to briefly gloss over this because I've explained vortex theory on how electrons and quarks now and neutrinos and positrons, everything is all a vortex. It's all a vortex just swirling away, every last bit of it. But they're not the same vortexes, okay? In case in hand, when you bring an electron together with a quark, you get a down quark, all right? I should probably show you this because this is important. Everything builds off this, okay? As I've explained previous lectures, okay? An electron, when it, I want to delete this stuff because it's so good here. We have an electron, right? And it's a vortex, and it's all spinning around, right? And then we got a quark. All right, we'll make the quark kind of oblong and bigger. When they connect, the up quark and the electron touch, because they want to. They're opposites, and they want to get close to each other the way they're introduced and react. They create a down quark. Okay, that's what a down quark is an up quark that's 8 in an electron. Okay. Now, that's proof that they're not antimatter components in any way, shape, or form because they actually do connect and are attached in some way. Okay, and if they were antimatter components, they would explode and annihilate because what you're doing is you're breaking your electron or quark open from its vortex form into an open form and annihilating the energy, dispersing it. Excuse me. And so it's going to go An annihilation, 100% complete reaction efficiency. Because all of the energy inside this electron, or positron, or quark, or anti-quark, it's all being opened up, ripped out, and just dispersed omnidirectionally. Okay? So, if a quark and an electron were somehow antimatter components of each other in any way, shape, or form, whenever they touched at any time, whether it be an electron capture to make a down quark or for chemistry purposes, you would have annihilation. But this does not happen. So clearly, the positive field of the quark is not the counter of the negative field of the electron. Okay? This is an important concept. You have to first kind of understand what's going on here before you start putting the pieces together. Okay? So, blah, 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 blah. Give rise to various proportions of intense photons and gamma rays and neutrinos and sometimes blah, 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 blah. I'm going to explain all this, everything. It's going to take so long. You're going to be here forever. Forever. You're never getting away from this. It's going to go on forever and ever. Okay, natural production. Positrons are produced naturally via beta plus decays, naturally occurring radioactive isotopes. Okay, I'm going to explain all this, okay? To explain antimatter, because we have at least like 3 different variants of it that are going on, okay? So to explain this, I'm going to have to explain to you all 3 different types of antimatters and how they're made and what the fuck. It's going to be a doozy. But what I want to show you, more than anything, okay, cosmic rays, it's positrons and anti-positron cosmic rays. I'm going to explain this too. There is something that's important. Here we go. This is an important bit of information I wanted to show you. Positrons were reported in November of 2008 to have been generated by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in large numbers of laser drove electrons through a gold target nuclei, which caused incoming electrons to emit energy quanta that decays in both matter and antimatter. That's bullshit. They're just saying that because that's the way they think antimatter is created. They think that you have a large sum of energy, and from this energy, it spontaneously just magically wants to become matter, and just poof, you get matter. There's going to be antimatter and matter because energy wants to be there. That's the way current physics thinks. They're wrong. I'm going to tell you everything. But this is important. We do have to keep this in mind. We're going to come back to this. Gold atoms being generating large numbers of antimatters when you're doing fuckery with them. What's going on here? Okay. This is a Feynman diagram. I'm sure there's a few of them for antimatter reactions, but it's basically just saying, listen, we know that if you have like a really high energy gamma photon, like a really high, like not a normal one, but a really high one, it can create a pair production. So it can create a positron and an electron, okay? But they don't know what's actually going on to make this. So once again, this is just the statement, the blanket statement going across all the physics saying, hey, we believe that if you have enough energy, it just wants to spontaneously convert into matter and antimatter. But we have no clue why or when or why it wants to do this or how it does it. Because they don't know. They're wrong. But high energy gamma rays are necessary to create positrons. I'm going to get into this too. Okay. This is kind of the beginning of the understanding that that kind of opened up all the doors for me into this subatomic world and figuring everything out. It all started with one concept, 2 concepts, okay? The first concept is that an electron and an up quark, when they combine, create a down quark, okay? And this is a known breakdown pathway in physics. Okay, we know that when up quarks get destroyed, most of the time they want to shoot out an electron and an up quark. My bad. When a down quark gets destroyed, it wants to shoot out an up quark and an electron because that's what it's used to make. But sometimes various things happen because you're colliding all sorts of things, and so they get confused about this. Okay. Now, um, the second thing is that protons turn into neutrons when they capture an electron. Now, modern science believes this. Believe this or not, modern physics does believe in electron capture, where a proton will just gobble up an electron, and then after that, it'll turn into a neutron. But they have no explanation for how it is. And when the reverse happens, when a proton or when a neutron decays into a proton, they do not relate the two at all together. I'm going to have to explain this, okay? But what you need to know is that, yes, the difference between a proton and a neutron is a proton is 8 in an electron. And if a neutron releases one of those electrons, it will decay into a proton plus shoot out an electron, okay? I believe that's beta plus decay. We're going to get to all of this, okay? And then the second concept that all of this is built upon is A. If you notice, this is a chart giving you the breakdown of the electromagnetic spectrum, okay? Notice gamma rays are as small as 10 to the negative 12th, okay? They are essentially the size, frequency, of an atomic nuclei, okay? That's the size that they are, is of an atomic nuclei. Actually, maybe even a little bit bigger, because this might be a super high energy gamma ray. But that's a very large nuclei. But what it doesn't tell you in this chart is the quantum mechanical waveform of an electron begins right after this, okay? So as soon as we get any smaller than this size, now we have an electron. So really, this chart is missing one final cherry on the top, and that is the electron over here in the smallest form of electromagnetic packet of a photon. So that's what an electron is the most energetic form, the smallest form of a photon, okay? And they're made, electrons are made as easily as photons are made by electrons, okay? So once you accept those two facts, everything else I'm about to explain to you is elementary and the only way everything can work out. And it's just remarkable, I find, and proof that everything is working out perfectly according in the right direction with all observations perfectly. There are no inconsistencies that I can find so far. So this is an important concept if you're going to understand. This is why I have to go over this again and again and again. All of dynamic gravity is based around these two factors, and a third one, that atoms need energy to manifest their fundamental forces, which Nikola Tesla also believed. Those three principles make up the entire framework of dynamic gravity, everything. So if you agree with those three principles, that yes, I believe atoms need energy externally in the form of heat to do things like create the electromagnetic force, otherwise they turn into like a Bose-Einstein conduit and aren't able to do anything, even hold themselves together. Yes, I believe that when an electron is a slightly higher energetic form of a gamma ray, a photon. And yes, I believe that when a up quark eats an electron, it turns into a down quark. If you believe in those three tenets, you believe in every word I have ever spoken on this channel. You just don't know it yet because you haven't gone down the rabbit hole far enough like I have. There's a reason, guys, why every couple weeks I just decide to conquer an entirely new realm of physics. is because I'm using this framework that I have discovered with dynamic gravity and applying it to everything, and everything is working perfectly. I like to think that's because I'm right. Well, he's right. I'm just shutting the fuck up and listening to what he's trying to tell me. That's all that's going on. Okay? Now, some of these things are my own ideals, and I mix them in there, and some of them are his, and he's just relating to them. Sometimes he wants me to figure it out. But it is what it is. Ultimately, 95% of information in the channel is 100% correct. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Might be a few percent here and there that I got wrong or slightly skewed off this direction or that direction. Nobody's perfect, not even me. Okay. So, important concept, okay? Now, you need to understand that electrons and quarks are both vortexes, okay? So that means that when they're created, like when an electron is in orbit and it gets absorbs another or photon and it moves it by changing this charge differential because it readjusts in the field and it goes boop boop. That is the force that like they are using to create like a vortex. It creates an electromagnetic vortex. And quarks do the exact same thing in the confines of a proton. We know they do this. Modern physics will tell you that protons are constantly trying to generate quarks and antiquarks. Like they just want to make more. But a lot of times it doesn't work out because they don't have enough energy to do it, or it's not stable enough, or it's too stable, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But that is, if you need more, you should go and look at my 2 episodes on how electrons are vortexes and quarks are vortexes. They're 2 very important things to help you understand everything that's going on. But this is what's going on. That's what an electron looks like when it's in its point form anyways. It's very small. When it's in its bigger, actually in its bigger form, it probably looks the same too, just a lot bigger. When it's not being interacted with, being measured or affected. But just know, this is what quarks and electrons are, okay? They are vortexes. And neutrinos too, they are also vortexes. Every particle, as far as I can tell, is essentially a vortex. That's it. That's what they are, man. They're not actual marsupials of mass that are like hard. They're this dynamic thing that's constantly spinning and turning in on itself to create this outer boundary of force and and a field at the same time and keep manifesting itself internally. It's radical, man. I'm still trying to understand everything about how photons travel and generate at the speed of light and how that process works. But I'm going to have to deal with that later. I got way too many fish to fry right now. But just so you know, this is what vortexes are. And this is exactly how I discovered this too. I was smoking my cannabis, talking to Shiva with the ganja, and I blew a perfect smoke circle and a vortex, and I'm like, it's almost alive. It has its own boundary. It's interacting with things. It has forces generating. And then the thought just got popped in my head by God. I was like, yeah, that's what electrons are. I'm like, oh. And it just all hit. And from there, I've been on this tear, going on this tear through all of modern physics. Rewriting the history books, okay? But that's what they are, okay? They're vortexes. You have to understand that because I'm going to teach you how they're created now, okay? Here's some cloud chambers. This is how we discovered the first antimatter, like the positron. I think they had they believe it was gamma rays, which are neutral because they're space-time and time, that was hitting something at a lead or something. And from it, So look at all these particles. These are all particles. I think it's a radioactive thing. It's probably alpha particles coming off of this. They're just pew, 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 pew. So cool, right? So cool. But the antimatter reaction. Where is it at? I thought it was here on this, but I thought I had it primed and ready to go, but it looks like I don't because I am a loser. I apologize. I know. I let you down all the time. I know I'm the worst. I'm a big meanie. I know. I'm such a big meanie. I know. But he sprayed some like radium or some aryl thing in there, and now it's just going haywire, just spontaneously disintegrating. Pew, 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 pew. But he talks about antimatter. Maybe this is it right here. Yeah. Okay.
That shows the creation of a pair of particles, one electron and one positron.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This event was the conversion of a high-energy gamma ray that kicked an electron out of an atom and was itself converted into two particles.
It's not it. Now that's their explanation of what's going on. They're like, "Wow, high-energy gamma ray just got to hit with an electron. It just magically turned to the electron and positron." No. No, 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 no. Not what's going on here. We're to get into it.
The gamma ray photon.
I just want you to know this is the thing.
This is an example of converting energy.
And it creates a positron and an electron in the cloud chamber. They discovered this back like 1920 something because they can see the two paths of the electrons diverging, and so at the same time, when they put a magnet near them. So they're like, oh, well, one is opposite charge, and we think one's an electron. So that must be an opposite particle to an electron, positron. Excuse me. Got blown up in the warp. Sucks. What do you do? Okay. So, beta decay. Okay. Beta decay. There's different forms of beta decay. There's two different forms. We're going to have to explain both because both are doing different things. They're made from different things, and different things are happening in those. And then there's a third one that technically they should probably call beta decay, but they don't, that we're going to go into as well. Although that one doesn't really create antimatter, but it's good just to know just to see how it all fits together, the triumvirate. Beta capture, beta decay. So you got beta negative decay and beta positive decay, okay? And here's the reactions, okay? Now, I know you're probably looking at that going, that my mind does not want to tell me what the hell that's saying. Can you please explain it to me, Sean? No, but I'll show you a much better diagram as well. Okay. So, beta minus decay, carbon 14 will turn into nitrogen 14. What's happening is one of the protons is somehow, they don't know where the electron comes from, but it is eating an electron. Okay? No, my bad. No, my bad. That's this one, beta plus decay. I'm so sorry, I screwed this up. Beta minus decay. A proton is that? Yeah, no. A neutron, that's right. A neutron will release a electron somehow, and then that electron will go into a proton. So what will happen is my bad, not go into electron. Yeah, a neutron releases an electron and decays into a proton. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm screwing this up so bad. A neutron will release an electron. Remember? Because neutrons have, they have like, let's say, it is like this, I believe, was, oh, you suck. Okay. So this would be the neutron. It is a proton. This is a proton. Okay. It has 3 up quarks that are constantly fighting over the attention of one electron. That's what's going on. They call it the strong nuclear force. That's what's going on. Now, when a proton eats an electron, it becomes a neutron. And when a neutron spits out an electron, it becomes a proton. Okay? So, what they're trying to say here is that a neutron spit out an electron and became a proton. And when it did that, it released an electron and an anti-neutrino. Okay? I'm going to explain this. And now we have beta plus decay, where you have 6 protons turning into 5 protons. So you're having one proton that is eating an electron and turning into a neutron. So we got 4 neutrons turning into 5 neutrons. That's what's happening. One proton is eating an electron and turning into a neutron. And it's going to spit out a neutrino because of this orientation of the nucleus and a positron. I'm explaining all this. All right? Now, the odd thing about this is they don't know where the electron comes from. And I'm not exactly sure yet either, but it happens somewhere, okay? But if they do know where the electron comes from, like the electron is going to come from an inner orbital, okay? You're going to have an atom, that will consist of, let's say, 2 protons and a neutron, right? And then 2 electrons, okay? So you got your electrons here, okay? Here's your 2 electrons. You got 2 protons. Boop, boop, 2 electrons. So I even that out, okay? Now, if the innermost electron gets gobbled up, oh, would you stop? By this inner electron, and the proton gobbles it up and turns into a neutron. Now what you have is a proton turning into a neutron, just like beta plus decay. But the difference is they know where the electron came from. So it's called electron capture, okay? It's electron capture. So say we'll have carbon 11, it will eat one of its inner electrons in its closest orbitals to the nucleus. It gets too close, whatever, eats it. Proton becomes a neutron. And now it goes up into boron 11. My bad, it goes down the boron 11 because it's going down, and it spits out a neutrino. No antimatter, but it spits out a neutrino because, as I've explained what neutrinos are, they are essentially like the proton's version of an electron when it creates one, okay? Now, I might have said a quark, and that's wrong. I'm wrong about that. It is the proton moving itself and readjusting in the core of the nucleus in the presence of the electron. I might have said that. I might have said a quark itself and the proton, but it's actually the proton as a whole. Okay? And that's causing some really weird things to happen. Okay? I'm probably going to have to go into that as well. We're almost at the explaining phase. I just have to give you all the tools and all the lingo and the terminology we're going to have to be working with to hash through this, kids. Okay, that's why I'm doing this. I'm teaching you everything you need to know. Okay? Now, we're going to start explaining some things. Okay? What the hell is antimatter? Okay. So you have an atom like helium, okay? So you have 2 protons and 2 neutrons, okay? It's a good helium atom. And it's going to want 2 electrons. But these electrons are not going to be like this, where they're going to be spaced out super far apart from each other. They want to be, but they don't for energetic reasons of energy conservation. So what they do is they create spin. they'll have opposite spins, okay? Helium, one electron will be spin up and one electron will be spin down. I explained this to great avail in my lecture on electrons or vortexes. If you want to go and look at that and find out why I'm talking about all this, this is important knowledge to know. You have to understand that electrons are vortexes and that a spin up vortex not sure what that is. Okay. A spin up vortex is a vortex that goes like this. Beep, bop, boop. Beep, bop, bop, boop. Trying to make this, but this is not easy. Okay, so this wind, whatever is making this vortex, is going to come here and it's going to wrap around for various reasons. It's going to keep going, okay? And it's going to feed in on itself and make a circle. This is like we've vivisectioned the vortex, okay? Like this is a vortex, boop, beep, bop, bop, and it's spinning this way. That's what it would be going, right? Inner, outer, beep, bop, bop. Yeah, so it's like we've cut this in half, boop, and now we're looking at this vivisection, and we can see how it's swirling this direction. Everything is, and this one is going to be going this direction. This is what an electron does. It spins in these directions. Beep, bop, bop, oh, beep, bop, bop. Okay. Now, let's say that is spin left. Okay. Now, physics has explained this. Okay. This is the definition of spin. If the particle is spinning in the direction of its momentum, P's momentum, spin, same direction, then it is considered right-handed. If it is spinning in the opposite direction of its momentum, it is considered left-handed. Okay? Now, let's say this is spinning in the direction its momentum is going this way. Beep, bop, bop, boop. Momentum. Beep, bop, bop, boop. P. Momentum. Okay? Now, there is another way to draw this. Okay? Let's say the momentum is this way. And let's say we've got our vivisectioned vortex. This time, let's say the force is going from outside in, okay? And so it's going to go around, beep, bop, bop, beep, bop, 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 and it's going to spin this direction, okay? So you see how the vortex is going opposite direction that a vortex normally wants to spin. And its momentum is going to be going this way, okay? Do you see this? And it's going to be spinning the opposite direction. Like this one's spinning from outside in, this one's spinning from inside out, or vice versa. I probably mixed that up, but you get the point. It's the opposite direction, okay? So it's going the same direction, but it's spinning the opposite way. And what we learned from this on my lecture is if we take this and spin it like this, beep, bop, bop, as physics says, they're going to have opposite momentums when they're in their shell of this, okay? Just like it says, opposite directions. One is going to be going this direction with this momentum. One's going to be going this direction. When they add the two directions together, they nullify and counter out and make zero. It all zeroes out, which is what you want to happen to make the atom stable. So it's not got this crazy force toppling and spinning it over on itself over and over. So it's unable to perform chemistry or do whatever. It has to have some sort of equilibrium. So you can't have all the electrons spinning the same direction, or the electron's going to just spin out of control. Or not about the atom, the molecule, whatever. It's going to get all crazy, haywire, and do stupid things. So this is how nature balances things out naturally. It's kind of equilibrium, conservation of energy. It wants things to equal out so that they're zero. So you don't have to worry about them anymore, okay? And what we learned is that when we add these two together, look at that. They are going opposite directions, and they're opposite spins, electrons, or quarks too. But when we add them, look at that. Look at these two things. These two things right here, when we add them together, look at that. They go the same direction. See that? They go the same direction. So now they can satisfy the same place at the same time because they're going the same direction. Once they get enough force to overcome the boundaries and barriers of this, okay? So it does take a little bit of energy to force an electron from, say, left configuration, spin right configuration to right configuration and invert it. That way it can be opposite spin and momentum to fit neatly into the same orbital of another electron. But once you have that energy fit into it, now you're at a lower energy state for the atom altogether, so that's why it wants to do that. Hope I haven't lost yet because we're about to get fucking nuts. All right? So, this is why we have opposite spins going in an atom. Okay? We have a left configuration, left spin, and a right spin at the same orbital, the same place, that are doing exactly different momentums. Okay? So, a helium atom is, it has both in the same configuration, okay? And this goes out every orbital. It will do this. It's just saying, nope, it's not going to have two going the same direction. They're going to have to opposite momentum. Opposite momentum, and the only way they can fit that way together is if they have opposite spin. I don't make the rules. God does. I just enforce them. Okay? Now, and here we go. Here's their kind of explanation of a spin. You have an electron spinning this way versus that way, and it's like a sphere. But they know it's not doing that because when they do the math, this doesn't work out. Electron would have to be spinning faster than the speed of light for this to be correct. So they know that's not correct, but they still portray it this way because they can't explain it any other way. All right. Well, you see, the magnetic fields are going the opposite direction. Guess what? I say an electron is a vortex of an electric charge being confined by the magnetic field generated from that electric charge of motion. When you do this, add them together, they have exactly opposite fields, just like you need to satisfy what we know to be true in physics. All of this works. There are no inconsistencies so far with anything that I've taught you in all of my previous lectures, okay? There's one correction I have to do about the generation of quarks. When I made my quark video, I was under the assumption that antimatter is probably made from a opposite charge of like an electron and a quark together could make an electron and anti-quark. I was wrong about that. I hadn't finished working out the antimatter theory yet. but I knew it had to be somehow along those lines. So I just went with it to get the damn thing out, and then I decided to rehash everything, and I came up proper. So I'm going to have to correct that when I explain the fuck is going on here, what I'm about to do. We're almost there. We're finally approaching satisfaction. Okay? So, here we go. This explains the right-handed, which I told you. Okay. Now, when these two electrons are occupying the same place in opposite spins, forced into opposite spins to be in the same orbital, this will quantumly entangle the electrons. Now, physicists get all snooty about this. They're like,
Well, technically, it's not true quantum entanglement. It's a half-assed variant.
shut up. It's entanglement. It's the same damn thing, okay? It might behave a little differently because the form that the electrons are in when they're being entangled in the orbital, they're being interacted with heavily. They're not in, say, maybe a cloud form. They have much less interaction going on. You know, it's the same thing though. They're being quantumly entangled. That's what's going on. Okay. So when you fit two electrons in the same orbital and it forces their spin to be opposite and their momentum to be opposite to fit everything, conservation of energy, you are quantumly entangling those two electrons. Even if physics is like, well, it's not true, they still admit it. They're like, yes, it is a form of entanglement. You know, perform entanglement can, in some cases, be found perfectly correlated. For example, parentangled particles such as spin token on be zero, because it all has to be zero. Then one particle is found to have clockwise spin on the first axis, and the spin of the other measure the same axis found to be anti-clockwise. However, the spin will give rise to seemingly paradoxical effects. Any measurement of the particle properties results in apparent irreversible wave function. See, and I explained this on my last video I made. All of this I explained on explain double slit experiment. If you're curious about what's going on there, I tell you everything. Okay? All right. Now, finally starting to get into good shit. Okay? So, I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. Okay? I'm like, yo, dog, what the hell is going on with this antimatter? Okay? Now, here's something you have to understand. Modern physics is wrong. They don't know what the hell's going on. And they have stupid shit like this. They will tell you that the electric charge is like this. Negative will be an electron, and the positive will be a proton. So they'll tell you, listen, this will take this positive charge as a proton, and this is an electron, and then this is them interacting. That's not really true. This is technically wrong, okay? The best way to think about this is that the positive charge is antimatter, and the negative charge is regular matter. It's like this is an electron, and this is a positron, okay? This is the best way to think about this, okay? Now, when you have an electron, and let's say this were to be a proton or a quark, yes, they do also interact the same way that the positive and negative, the electron and positron interact, as that they want to come together. The difference is one of those, they can come together and interact. The other one, if they come together, they destroy each other, okay? So it's not the same thing. And the best way to look at this, if you want complete accuracy, is that the positive is a positron and the negative is an electron, okay? If we're going to have a proton or a quark going in this mix, it really should be completely different beasts because it is a completely different beast. They just happen to attract each other, and I don't understand why that is. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm getting there. I'm working on it, okay? So, there is something that we have to understand here, okay? We have a positive charge and a negative electrical charge. Positive electrical charge, negative electrical charge. Guess what? AC also has this too, okay? So, an AC waveform is constantly changing its polarity every half cycle, alternating between a positive maximum value and a negative maximum value, respectively, with regards to time, with a common example of this being domestic main voltage supplies we use in our homes, okay? Now, if we look at an AC wave, okay, here's like a typical AC wave, okay? These are like, I don't know, stuff added together, it's just stupid. But this is what an AC wave looks like, it's a sine wave, okay? Notice, when it's positive, it's never positive when it's negative. It's always one or the other from the way that's being created. Either it's going this direction or that direction, okay? So technically this would be the negative and this would be the positive going up. But my point is, they're never together, okay? It's never positive and negative together. And if you did that, you might have some antimatter explosion reactions. Very possible. I mean, it just depends. Because I think these are just fields and not actually particles like positrons being made. So that's probably an incorrect statement for me to say that they would explode if you were to, because you can stack multiple AC phases and waves together and they don't explode. They just nullify, they cancel each other out. They don't explode into energy because there are no positrons that are being made, but there is a negative electric field being made, okay? Now, what you need to understand, there was something I wanted you to see. It was very important. It's about to blow your mind, child. Blow it all over the walls. Where are you? You cannot hide from me forever. Here you are. Okay. This is the formula for charge. Okay? Positive charge or negative charge? Charge. Right there, Q. Okay? Trying to make it bigger for you, but I'm a loser and I'm failing horribly. Okay, charge. And differential of time initial, time final. So we got differential of time, initial, and final. Okay, initial, final time. That's all it's saying is time. Change in time times current makes charge. Now, when you're making a photon or an electromagnetic wave, whatever, maybe this does not cancel out and explode. But when you're making an actual negative or a positive particle combined with a negative particle, like a positron electron, they are going to interact and they are going to split each other's vortexes and turn into basically pure energy. All right? But what you need to see here is that current times time equals charge. Okay? So, pontificate upon this. What happens if you have two entangled electrons together? Okay? Two entangled electrons. No, not there. Together. They're entangled together. Okay? And now you have, let's say, a very high energetic gamma ray. Okay? Now let's say you have a regular photon. Let's start with the regular photon. Now this is the way that these electrons like to be in orbitals. Okay? One up, one down. When a regular photon hits it, pew, the one that's in the proper orientation, or maybe it's dependent upon the chirality, whether it's a left spin or right spin photon, which determines whether it was made by a left spin or right spin electron, which even though modern physics says it's not entirely dependent on that, it really kind of is. But if you have, let's say, a left spin, I don't know if it's left spin or if it just automatically defaults to the left spin. No, it probably is like a left spin. Yeah, it probably makes more sense. If you have a left spin photon, it'll interact with the left spin or right spin, photon. If you have a right spin photon, it'll interact with the vice versa electron. And so it will create one or the other. But if you have an ultra high energy gamma ray, which is so energetic that it has enough energy to move not one electron, but both electrons at the same time, guess what we've got now? Look at this. Bloop, bloop. Bloop, bloop. Do you see it? Let me do it one more time. Bloop, bloop. Remember, this is how electrons are made. Bloop, bloop. And it spits out another electron. Pew. Bloop, bloop. And it spits out an electron. Pew. So if you have two electrons that are entangled with opposite spins and opposite trajectories, opposite momentums, being moved at the same time with enough force and distance and charge and velocity to create another vortex, another electron, not a photon, but another electron. If it goes all the way, bloop, bloop, this other electron with opposite spin also went along with it the entire way. Okay? So we have a photon, right? Not a photon, but an electron. And its momentum is this way. Beep, beep, bop. And this one's momentum is this way. Beep, bop, bop. Okay? Now, let's say this is the proper orientation. So when it does this, it goes with the grain, so to speak. Bloop, bloop. And it poops out another electron. Boo! But when you have an electron that's in the opposite spin and opposite momentum, and you're forcing it to go bloop, bloop, against its momentum, like it wants to go this way, and you're like, no, bloop, bloop. What have you just done? You have reversed the current. So now, if we go back to our formula, instead of having a positive I, you have a negative I. Negative I times the time it takes to make whatever equals negative charge. You now have created what should have created is an electron because you dragged this photon at the same time as the proper orientation photon, and you dragged it against its momentum, against its spin, against its will that it wants to go, and back again. You now have created a positron. This is what it says mathematically, does it not? Am I not wrong? with the mathematics on this. You do the opposite current, so you get a negative current times your time gives you negative charge. The math confirms it. I can't explain it to you any better than that. But let's go through every single instance where antimatter is made and see what the fuck is going on here. Okay? This is what's going on. All right? So, where are types of beta decay? Okay. Now remember, they said they were making positrons, an antimatter, when they shot it with gold, right? They did say this, right? A laser drove electrons through gold target nuclei, which cause incoming electrons. Okay. So let's first do positrons. Start all over again, baby. Make it fresh. Renew it all. Okay. So gold. It's gold, right? I want you to look at something with gold.
For AU. This is gold. And the electron configuration for gold is a bit of an exception, so we need to be careful with that. If you looked at the periodic table, you followed the patterns for the different groups.
Blah, blah,
Often
blah, blah, blah.
for with gold is...
So he's basically saying, he's showing you this is not the configuration. He's saying that it wants to be more
each one of these blocks has a pair of electrons.
Energetic, so it's going to do this. It's going to fill out this one first, right? Now, I cannot tell you which one of these entangled electron spin pairs is the actual one that's being dragged, okay? Electron this way and electron this way. Make it easier. I cannot tell you which one of these electrons, boop, boop, which one of these pairs of gold is the one that's actually making the electron, because remember, when we have an electron go bloop, bloop, we get an electron. And then, according to the formula of mathematics and common sense, if we drag a reverse one that same direction, we get the opposite charge, opposite current, opposite charge. So we get a positron, electron and positron at the same time, pair production. I cannot tell you which one of these quantumly entangled pairs is the actual one doing it. I would assume it's probably one in the outermost shells, because that's the one that's probably going to interact with the easiest, right? The ones that are closest are probably being covered by a lot of other orbitals. I cannot tell you, but I'm going to guess it's probably one of the ones on the outer ones, okay? But who knows? Need more research. Okay? So, that's what's happening with pair production with positron and electron. You have a gold atom, or whatever, any atom that is not hydrogen. Why hydrogen? Because hydrogen does not have a quantumly entangled pair. It only has the one electron, because it's hydrogen. Okay? So, if my theory is correct, hydrogen should never, ever make a positron? Huh. Look at that. No. Hydrogen atom itself cannot directly produce positrons. Yeah, interesting. They don't know why, but they know that it can't do it. It's almost like I know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I am right. I am the one. Not the one who figured this shit out. No, yeah. I'm the one who shut the fuck up and listened to what God had to say to me. That's what I am. You can speak to you too. You just learn to shut up and listen more. It's not easy. It took a long time for me to figure it out. Okay, so that's how a positron is being made. Okay? I'm gonna look at my notes, make sure I'm not forgetting everything. Okay. Now, when you have a proton, okay, you have a proton. So we got our electron, beep, and we got our quark, boop, and of course they want to touch and make a down quark, okay? So they touch and do that. That's what they want to do. So they make a down quark, okay? But the charge is still in favor of the electron, so it wants more. It's greedy. So it gets 2 more quarks before it's finally satisfied. And now you have a proton. Okay? You have a proton. Oh my God, I totally forgot what I was going to explain. That's right, quark production. Quark pair, anti-pair production. Okay. So we know this. I'm not making this up. This is a fact. Inside this proton, you have crazy shit happening, all right? Like this thing, beep, 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 constantly being fought over between these 2 quarks, all right? They're constantly fighting over that electron because they all want it. Now, I told you in my last lecture on quarks, that the way quarks were made, because they always had to have a quark and an anti-quark pair production that were made for some reason. And I don't know still to this day exactly why that is. But I told you the best likely scenario for what was going on was that the down quark was being ripped apart and moved for whatever reason, bloop, bloop, far enough away, fast enough, that it was creating another vortex, but that vortex was going to, because it has a negative, the electron, and a positive component in there, was going to create a negative entity, the anti-quark, or the positive entity, the anti-quark, and the negative entity, the regular quark, whatever, vice versa. Or backwards, I'm mixing this up because I'm stupid. Okay? That was wrong. What's actually going on, now that I understand this better, what has to happen is that just the way that electrons entangle by opposite spins coming together, so too do quarks. This is how they also fit together to make a proton. Okay? I draw it like this, but this is not right. What's technically right is this quark is going to be going beep, beep, bop, bop, bop that way, and this quark is going to be going beep, bop, bop, bop that way, and this one's got the electron at that exact second, and these 2 are going to be, oh, come on, don't be problematic, boop, on top of each other. So you're going to have an up quark, not an up quark, that's horrible. You're going to have a spin up quark and a spin down quark. And is going to be a spin up quark and a spin down quark, and then you're going to have an actual down quark which actually has possession of the electron at that exact second, and they're constantly swapping this game like a billion times a second. Okay, You can calculate it depending on how fast the vortices is. I have a good idea of how fast they're probably going to explain the observations. Probably roughly about 3 times faster than an electron, which is the fine structure constant 1/137 the speed of light. Is how fast that vortice is going, because that's how fast electrons can travel in the speed of a proton. So, and once again, if we have 2 quarks that are on top of each other, just like 2 electrons in the same orbital, and for whatever reason, they get moved in the presence of the field of electrons around them, you are now going to make quarks. Bop, bop. But because they have a spin up and a spin down quark on top of each other, spin left or right, whatever you want to think of it, because they're vortexes, just like electrons, what's going to come out of that is going to be 2 quarks. Just like the positron-electron, you're going to get a quark and anti-quark pair production. That is what pair production is. When you have a quantumly entangled system that is being manipulated and moved in the field in the presence of its, of electron or a proton, depending on which one it is, you're going to create a pair production. That's how that works. Okay? So, I've explained how we got positrons and electrons being created together. And I have explained how we get quarks and antiquarks created together. Now we're going to explain the 2 remaining instances that I have not described yet, beta minus decay and beta plus decay. Okay? Now, just want to say, first, electron capture, explain what it is. The reason why it only spits out a neutrino and not an anti-neutrino or whatever is because it is basically the atom is shifting after it is being changed, like the proton to a neutron. And so the atom nucleus has to readjust to come to equilibrium. And during that process, any proton that moves, like in that form, will create a neutrino. A neutrino, as I've explained, is basically the electron variant of a proton. When it creates a vortex, it will create a neutrino. And I haven't figured out exactly why this is yet, but you can kind of see. We have 3 quarks, okay? And 1 electron. So for this to be completely neutral charge, you would have to add another electron. Beep, bop, bop. Remember, if a proton eats an electron, it now becomes a neutron. Bloop. Just like that. Now it's a neutron. Now, I say that is when a proton moves in the core of the atom nucleus, like this, it will spit out a neutrino. Okay? Spit out a neutrino. Because that is the energy packet form that life deals with. It's photons and neutrinos. Okay? Or electrons. Photons in the highest form of photons, electron, and all the same thing with neutrinos. They can also spit out their variant of photons, I call photons, and neutrinos, the highest form of that. Okay? So, but because we know the neutrino is neutral, it's also very, very possible that the neutron going bloop, bloop is what's actually generating the neutrino. Now, you got to remember, you're like, but a neutron is neutral, so if a neutral entity is moving in the field, why would it create a neutrino? It is neutral overall, but keep in mind, it's when you start breaking it apart, you have 3 positive entities here and 2 negative entities here that are making it neutral. But inside, you got a smorgasbord of, interplay interactions going on. Okay? Now, I'm not sure that I buy into that. I prefer the proton because I'm going to lay another bombshell on you about the neutron here in another second when I start explaining beta minus decay. I'm going to have to. So I do think personally it is probably the proton that's doing the work in creating the neutrino. But I've been wrong before, and I want you to know there is possible it could be the neutron that's doing this work. But I believe it is the proton. But then that means that a proton, or a neutrino, actually is not completely neutral charge. It's just not as neutral as, or it's just not as charged as an electron. But it still does have some charge to it. But because it's a proton, a completely different energy signature, it's going to behave very opposite to the way an electron would behave. And I explain this to great detail in my lecture into what neutrinos are, and how they're made, and what's going on there. So, I just want you to know, excuse me, sorry. I understand what neutrinos are, but I'm not 100% there yet. Probably like 90, 95% there. But we're getting there. It could be right. Could also be a little more work left to be done in neutrinos. But it be what it be. So for an antineutrino, keep in mind, what we're going to have, I'm going to go into that later, hopefully. Okay. Let's start going to beta minus decay. Okay? Okay, hold on. Yes, okay. Right, what I wrote, okay. Beta minus decay is from the neutrino hitting out an electron of the down quark in the neutron. Okay? Think about that. Beta minus decay. When a neutron is being turned into a proton, so it's losing an electron. And what it's spitting out is an antineutrino. Okay? So we have a neutron. Okay? Let's say this is our neutron. But guess what? This is not what a neutron looks like. Remember, this is not what a proton looks like. A proton looks more like this. Okay? Excuse me. Guess what? As do the quarks, because their vortex doesn't have spins, want to change their spin and momentum to be energetically, stable together. So do the proton, or so do the electrons and the neutron. So these two electrons will get together and pair up and have opposite spin and quantumly entangle, essentially, inside a neutron. So what a neutron will actually look like is one up quark, okay, and 2 down quarks. And the 2 down quarks will be situated in a way that where the electrons that they are sharing, that they both have, they'll come together and share energetically to allow them to quantumly entangle to be in the lowest energy state. So the neutron can be in its most stable form. Okay? A neutron is not like a proton, where it has all this shit interacting with it inside, constantly bouncing around, trying to fight for dominance. A neutron is already fought for dominance and is done. It's not fighting anymore. This one up quark does not have enough to fight off these other two when they are entangled in the way they are. Now, maybe both these up quarks will be entangled. They're in the down quark. Maybe both the down quarks will be entangled entirely. But one thing's for sure: the two electrons will be entangled together, up and down. Okay. Now remember, I released a video a month or so ago explaining the source of all radioactivity. It's not random like physics tells you. What it is neutrinos that are coming through and they're interacting with particles, electrons, inside of the nucleus of atoms. Okay? So you have a neutrino, right? It's not a negative charge, not a neutral charge, but it does have a positive charge. It is made of the positive energy of the quark. It does have some charge. It is going to interact with this sometimes when it hits a direct hit, when the atom can't get out of the way for various reasons fast enough. You have to go into my lecture on neutrinos to kind of see the full picture of what can happen here. But you will have, let's say, a neutrino. They can look kind of weird, okay? And it's going to go, and it's going to hit this two entangled pair of electrons, okay? And so now these two electrons are going to go bloop, bloop when they're going to react. And what do we now have? We now have an electron being created and a positron, pair production in the core, the nucleus of an atom, or of an atom, okay? And so, what we're going to have is a neutron is going to spit out an electron and a positron, okay? But see if I can get this right, okay? But the positron is not going to make it out of the core, okay? It's going to interact with something. I don't know what exactly. And the process of all this stuff happening, you're going to have shifting of the inner core itself, like a neutrino is going to be created. Who knows what's going on, okay? But it is definitely going to create an electron. Well, let me make sure. Yeah, let me read my notes to be sure. I might have messed up. Antineutrinos are primarily produced during the process of beta decay, where the neutron decays into a proton and an electron. And an antineutrino, this process happens naturally in radioactive elements like uranium and potassium, okay? And this process, DG says, is caused from the rare hit neutrino hits. So neutrino hits a different spin electron and a neutron, probably from neutrino chirality, meaning that the electrons could be paired and the neutron to conserve energy. Neutrons are stable compared to proton core, so the entanglement can exist. Okay, so I was wrong. Okay, I lied to you because I'm brain damaged and I suck. Okay, the way it is it because the neutrino has a specific chirality. You only have one chirality neutrinos because of the way they're created in the core of atoms. They can only go the nucleus can only shift one direction, okay? So you always only get one chirality spin of a neutrino, okay? And so that might be interacting with one of the entangled electrons, depending on the spin of the electron, which one it's going to interact with. And so then that's going to bounce it out. And then what you're going to have is the reaction where a proton, where the neutron spits out the electron and becomes a proton, okay? Because remember what I said, what a neutron is. It is a proton that's eaten an electron. So if you spit out that electron, it now becomes a proton again, okay? So that explains the electron. Now, the antineutrino versus a regular neutrino, I cannot explain. Like I say, I don't have neutrino theory completely 100% worked out here for antineutrinos. But we know that what has to be happening is that the entire proton itself has to be moving in the opposite direction that it would normally want to go to create an antineutrino. And that will give us the opposite charge of whatever the neutrino is. So instead of being slightly positive, it could now be slightly negative. Okay? So, what exactly is going on to create this negative neutrino? How it's actually interacting with the proton to make it go the opposite direction that it wants to go for whatever reason, for its chirality, for its thing, I don't exactly know. But obviously it has something to do with this quantum entanglement of the proton or of the neutron being disturbed and being destroyed, and the up quark being turned to a down quark in there violently somehow. Okay? Now, for beta plus decay, what we have going on, beta plus decay is from a proton capturing an unknown electron. They say it's random decay, emits a neutrino and a positron. Beta plus decay occurs when the nucleus has too many protons relative to neutrons. So they're right on this. Whenever you have an atom that has way too many neutrons or way too many protons, it's going to want to do one of these beta minus or beta plus decays. Because the end result will be less energetic and more stable. I'll be right back, sorry. Okay, we're back. Feel a little better. Drain damage. So, this is the one that I was thinking of, where both the electron and both electrons move and create the thing that it is. Okay, I got confused there before. The last time, which insinuates, like I said, now we know. That's why I know that the inner core of the neutron has entangled electrons at the very least. Maybe not down quarks or up quarks entangled together, but it definitely will have at least entangled electrons, because that's the only way I can make my antimatter theory works. But if we make that assumption, which actually makes a lot of logical sense, now it does work. So now we're doing beta plus decay. Okay? Capturing an unknown electron. They say it's a random decay that emits a neutrino and a positron. Beta plus decay occurs when the nucleus has too many protons relative to neutrons. Okay, so yes, as I said, it wants to be more energetically fit. So if it has too many protons or too many neutrons, it's going to have an energy enticement, an energy incentive to do this beta decay to make a more energetically stable atom, okay? Causing a proton Oh, wait, what did I just do? I just messed up something. Okay. Causing a proton to transform into a neutron by emitting a positron. Proton pulls the entangled pair of electrons in the neutron, and this creates an electron and positron. The electron ate by the proton to make a neutron. Okay, so we got to turn a proton into a neutron with this. Okay, now what I said is that basically, like I said, in this atom, let's say there's too many protons. It's not energetically stable. So one of the protons will pull. The proton pulls. It will interact with the entangled pair of electrons in the neutron that I explained to you, because there's too many protons. There's too much force of the protons messing with things. So it's gonna actually interact with that entangled pair because it wants it. Okay, just because entangled doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it still can't be seen by a proton. Okay, and it's gonna react with it, and it's gonna make this. It's going to act with it and go bloop, bloop, both of them, both entangled pair at the same time, because the proton does not care about chirality like a neutrino does. Okay? So guess what? When we have both an electron and both spin states, bloop, bloop, moving at the same time, bloop, bloop, what do we get? We get a positron and an electron. So now we have a positron and an electron being created in this nucleus, okay? Well, guess what? We have to have a proton eating an electron to become a neutron. So that's what happens to the electron. It gets eaten. That's where it comes from. They say it's a mystery. I don't know, because you don't know what's going on. I do. So that's where the electron's coming from. And so that electron turns this neutron, or this proton, to a neutron. And then, because you have a different amount of protons and neutrons, the inner core, the nucleus shifts, and during that shift, as I explained, you have a proton that's going to go bloop, bloop, whatever. It's going to create neutrino. Okay, regular, basic, ordinary neutrino. So that explains the neutrino. So we get our electron to make the neutron, we get our positron, and we get our neutrino. And that's it. I have now officially explained everything to you. The only slightest tin that I don't completely understand yet is exactly how the antineutrino is made. And to be honest, I think I figured it out last night, but I was really high and I forgot it. I'm sorry. I'll have to do it again. That's the way I work. I'm a loser. That's what I do. Okay. So, let me check my notes here. Make sure I didn't. Okay, this is an interesting fact. So, a positron should have the same charge as a proton. It's an entire proton, a positron. It should have the same charge and effect. But remember, they're not the same. A positron is the opposite charge of an electron, okay, where a proton is a counterbalance and balanced equilibrium of 3 up quarks and an electron, okay? So even though technically they could have the same charge and effect on an electron, the difference is when the electron touches this bad boy, it destroys itself because it somehow disintegrates the magnetic boundaries of the vortex, and now it just releases all the energy. I don't exactly know how that works out, but I'm pretty sure that if we had it's been worked out in various people in their research over the years. I'd probably just have to look for it. I'm sure someone has some information. Well, maybe. Yeah, they should. They probably do somewhere. But yeah. So I just thought that's an interesting point to bring up. And yeah, I think that's everything. I think we're done, man. I think we're done. According to proton moves, it creates a neutrino. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything. All right. It was a long episode. I know, a long lecture, but did I not achieve and give you satisfaction as I promised? I think I've been pretty clear and pretty concise and pretty explanative about everything and how it works and how it's going on. Yeah, hopefully this does it for most people. If not, I don't know. You can always ask questions, comments, and I'll try and answer what I can. But yeah, all right, I'm done here. Adios. Happy Jesus Day, and love you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Like, subscribe, submit.